Good day, brethren. The good Captain here from CapnsKustomWorks. Welcome to another episode of Captain Uses Tools Wrong. This one's going to be kind of interesting. I'm going to be assembling a manifold for a new traveling airbrush rig that I'm setting up. And what I've done is I have ordered from, a certain well-known internet site that may or may not begin with the letter E, some sets of airbrushes, which are, the little cheapy kind like you'd find. And they're pretty decent, not bad, especially for traveling rig, just doing some fests. We're going to be doing some body painting and whatnot with these, which ought to be a good time. But because I opted to purchase the sets that did not have the base, including the manifold, to save what seemed like a very reasonable $30, which was about a third of the price. Well, I discovered that these airbrush connectors are of course not a standard type that we use here in the States. But you know what? We're going to fix that. We're going to build a homemade manifold, utilize some hose barbs, and that's going to eliminate that problem entirely. And I won't feel bad about it at all, because honestly that'll suit my traveling setup a lot more than the other option came with, which I just didn't care for the arrangement of. So let me give you a little up close of the parts we'll be utilizing here and see how it goes. Okay, so the parts we're using here are basically thus. We're going to be using a dozen, because, well, we have a dozen airbrushes to set up on this manifold. A dozen 1/4-inch tees. We're going to be using, I think, a total of a dozen, including the regulator 1/4-inch close pipe nipples. We're going to be using one 1/4-inch plug for the end of the manifold. A dozen 1/4-inch to 3/16 hose barbs, which means that yes, as much as it pains me to do so, we are going to be cutting the stock ends of these hoses off and using the hose barbs. This one is not all the way on because we're going to be fitting them on a little more professionally later, but this was my test setup, and as you can see, the hose does not easily come off that hose barb. That's pretty secure. So this is an example of how it'll all come out looking once it's done. But we're going to link all these together. We also have a regulator to regulate the final pressure at the manifold. We're not just trusting the tank regulator. This will be run off CO2 for festival purposes when you might not have electricity. Also going to be using some shrink tube to give not only some security but also a nice professional appearance to those hoses. Got a little longer. I think this is 1.5 inch pipe nipple that I was intending to put between the regulator and the manifold. We'll see how that comes out looking. I got some extra pipe nipples so I can vary that up. We'll see aesthetically and functionally how it fits. Also got an elbow so that the line that comes in off the regulator on the tank we can angle away instead of having to just bend the hose around. And of course, just about a mountain of Teflon tape, which is very important when you're doing things like this. You do not want to have a leak because that will compromise the integrity of your system and, of course, waste gas, which you just don't want to do. Bottled gas isn't exactly expensive, but if it's the difference between finishing your work and having a patron walk away with a half-finished full body paint that makes them very dissatisfied, you just plain do not want to have that happen. So, that being said, we're going to do a little time lapse while I rig all this junk together and you guys can see how it turns out. brethren. 12 Airbrush Manifold, all set up and made from nothing more than hardware store parts. Now, you could make a couple improvements to this easily. You could put individual valves so that you could only supply pressure to as many airbrushes as you choose. That would probably add, a few dollars per line to the total cost of the project, which, if you want to spend the money on it, that might be a good improvement. You could also use quick connects various places of the system. I chose not to because I'm not going to be doing a lot of disassembly of this. Once it goes into my travel rig, pretty much the only thing that will ever come off will be the regulator when I'm changing CO2 bottles. And that has a union type screw, so no other adjustment of that. I'll have to make a little final adjustment once it goes into the case I'll be using for travel, and I don't have that purchased and or constructed yet because I wanted to get a total finished size of this setup before I did so. But other than that, we have a system ready to go. Got a final regulator there, primary regulator right here off the bottle, 12 airbrushes, ready to spray paint. Not too bad. So thanks for checking it out with me. Stay tuned to my channel here because there's going to be some airbrush demonstrations, going to do some body painting demonstrations, probably a few time-lapse pieces because you guys know how much I love those. And please subscribe for not only my art, but everything else I'm doing. We got some music, we got some beer reviews, got some reviews of some e-liquids, and whatever else catches my fancy at the time. So please, share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think. Give a like to the video, subscribe to the channel, of course, if you'd like to stay apprised of what I'm up to. And we'll see you all again in the real near future, whether you like it or not.